Namaskar, Jai Shri Krishna. Corroborating text 7, text 8, text 9 and text 10 of chapter 2 contents of the Gita summarized of Srimad Bhagavad-gita. Text 7. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavah pritchami tvam dharma sammudha chetah yacha shreyah syan nishitam bruhi tanme shishyaste aham shadhi mama tvama prapannam. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. All Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life which happen without our desire. They are like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, one must approach a spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not therefore remain in material perplexities but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse. Who is the man in material perplexities? It is he who does not understand the problems of life. In the Bhagavad-gita 3.8.10, the perplexed man is described as follows. Yo va itad aksharam gargi avidit vasmal lokat praiti sa kripanah. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human and who thus quits this world like the cats and dogs without understanding the science of self-realization. This human form of life is a most valuable asset for the living entity who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. Therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. On the other hand, there is the Brahman or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. Ya itad aksharam gargi vidit vasmal lokat praeti sa brahmanah. The Kripanas or miserly persons waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc. in the material conception of life. One is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children and other members on the basis of skin disease. The Kripana thinks that he is able to protect his family members from death, or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals who take care of children also. Being intelligent, Arjun could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him, still on account of miserly weakness he could not discharge the duties. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, to make a definite solution. He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. He wants to stop friendly talks. The talk between the master and the disciple are serious, and now Arjun wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. Krishna is therefore the original spiritual master of the science of Bhagavad Gita, and Arjun is the first disciple for understanding the Gita. How Arjun understands the Bhagavad Gita is stated in the Gita itself, and yet foolish mundane scholars explain that one need not submit to Krishna as a person but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without. And one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita. Text 8. Na hi prapashyami ma mapa nudyada yacha choka mucha choshana mindriyanam avapya भूमाव सपत्न वृद्धम राज्यम Suranamapi Chadhipatyam. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Although Arjun was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Shri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna's conscious is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is a master in the science of Krishna's consciousness, regardless of his social position, is the real spiritual master. Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Shudra Kene Naya Yi Krishna Tattva Vetta Si Guru Haya. It does not matter whether a person is a Vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 8.128. So without being a master in the science of Krishna's consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literature, Sata Karma Nipuno Vipro Mantra Tantra Visharadaha Avaishnavo Gururanasyar Vaishnavaha Swapacho Guruha. A scholarly Brahman expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or expert in the science of Krishna's consciousness. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna's conscious. Padma Purana. The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease and death cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed, yet there are problems of material existence still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna's consciousness. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentation for family, social, national or international inabilities, then Arjun would not have said that even an unrivaled kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planets would be unable to drive away his lamentations. He sought therefore refuge in Krishna's consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment by the cataclysms of material nature. Even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad-gita confirms this. Shine punye martya lokam vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in that way. Such downfalls only constitute more causes for lamentation. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna as Arjun is seeking to do. So Arjun asked Krishna to solve his problem definitely, and that is the way of Krishna's consciousness. Text 9. Sanjaya Uvacha Eva Muktva Rushikesham Gudakeshaha Parantapaha Na Yotsya Iti Govinda Muktva Tushni Babhuvaha. Sanjay said, having spoken thus, Arjun, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjun was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjay disappointed him again in relating that Arjun was competent to kill his enemies parantapaha. Although Arjun was for the time being overwhelmed with false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentation resulting from family affection and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization or Krishna's consciousness and would then surely fight. Thus Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated since Arjun would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end. Text 10. Tamuvacha Hrishikeshaha Prahasaniva Bharata Senayoru Bhayor Madhye Vishidanta Midam Vachaha. O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjun. The talk was going on between intimate friends, namely the Rishikesh and the Gudakesh. As friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them became voluntarily a student of the other. Krishna was smiling because a friend had chosen to become a disciple. As Lord of all, he is always in the superior position as the master of everyone, and yet the Lord agrees to be a friend, a son, or a lover for a devotee who wants him in such a role. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master with gravity as it is required. It appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in presence of both the armies so that all were benefited. So the talks of Bhagavad-gita are not for any particular person, society or community, but they are for all, and friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them.